Between the ages of 2 and 5, my family lived in a house that a family friend was renting out. It was a nice house. 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, and a big kitchen. The whole package deal was for only $250 a month, and that included the utilities. We were told when we moved in that there were only 2 floors, the ground floor and the upstairs floor where the bedrooms were. I remember when we first moved in, and I was exploring the backyard. And as I was exploring the backyard, I had seen a window down at the very bottom of the house. For some reason, it had unnerved me so badly, I immediately burst into tears. Since my parents couldn't get me to explain what had spooked me, they simply took me inside to calm me down. This window was a source of fear and unease for me until we moved out when I was 5. My parents assumed that I would grow out of it, and I did, but not until we moved out. I could never place why it creeped me out so badly, but I avoided that part of the yard like the plague. My most vivid memory of my childhood happened in this house. I had been asleep in bed one night when a strange thump from downstairs woke me up. I've always been a light sleeper, but I fell back to sleep too quickly for the thud to really make any difference. I woke up again to a heavy, awkward breathing in my ear and someone kneeling next to my bed. When I opened my eyes, I saw the pale, thin face of a man peering back at me. I screamed. He booked it, and my parents brushed it off as a nightmare, but let me sleep in their room for the rest of the night. A week later, my 13-year-old sister woke everyone in the house by screaming at the top of her lungs. She claimed that she woke up to a man matching the one I had seen crawling into her bed. She described his breathing exactly as I remembered it, causing me to burst into tears. My parents were not pleased. My sister and I slept in their room. Food disappeared really quickly. Mom always just said that it was having 2 growing children and my dad in the house. Sometimes things would be moved from where we had left them the night before, but that was also brushed off. My sister assumed the house was haunted. My parents assumed she was just being paranoid. For the next couple of years, this continued on. Food disappeared, things were moved, and we occasionally had nightmares about the same strange man. When we tried to convince our parents that we weren't just dreaming, they brushed us off and insisted we were. This obviously caused a lot of tension between my sister and my parents. The night of my sister's 16th birthday came the encounter that brought about the end of our stay there. My sister woke us up again, screaming at the top of her lungs, but it cut out too quickly to be normal. My parents, concerned, went to check on my sister and found a strange man in dirty clothing pinning her down and covering her mouth with his hand. A fight broke out between the man and my dad, but the man was nearly 72 and weak from starvation. It didn't last long, and soon enough the man was subdued and the cops were called. My mom kept my sister and I in the living room while the cops checked the rest of the house for more people and signs of the man breaking in. Instead, they found a door leading into an unfinished basement. When closed, it blended in with the wall enough that unless you knew it was there, you would never see it. We had never even noticed it, and apparently the family friend who owned the house hadn't even known about it. The one little room was full of pictures of my sister and I in the yard, taken from that basement window. The reason I had always been so frightened of that window came to light. The man had been taking photos of my sister and I for years. That first day, I must have seen a flash of some kind, or maybe the man himself. The man was mentally unstable and claimed that he was in love with my sister and that I was their perfect daughter. He also claimed that since my sister was now 16, that she was old enough to give him another child. I'm not certain what happened, but I do think that he was sent to an asylum instead of prison. Out of the many effed up things to happen to me over my life, this one still takes the cake. I just purchased a new house. I got it cheap, as the previous owners wanted a fast sell. I'm not sure why, but I did a Google search and can't find anything sinister about the house. Maybe they were in debt and needed the fast cash. The house is incredible. It is an old hall at the edge of town. There is a long gravel driveway that leads to the house, lined with large trees, their gnarled branches beckoning you to venture further towards the warm glow of light streaming from the gray brick building. Sparse patches of ivy dart across from the right to a large growth nestling just below the guttering of the roof, cascading towards the mahogany door, ensnaring the porch window in its grasp, and barely letting a flicker of light that once used to shine so intently break through. It twists its way around and around the two large white pillars either side of the door, making its presence well known. Strange as it sounds, it feels like that isn't the only presence here. I'm not sure if it's just the eerie atmosphere of an old house or just my paranoia, but something feels very strange. Almost like we're being watched. It must be due to the garden, a wave of lush garden grass spreading toward the edge of a small woodland. A river runs by the back, but it's fenced off, stopping what I assume is the vivid curiosity of children from attempting to get a closer look and fall in. Wooded areas always give you that feeling of being watched. There's so many places to hide, and a million eyes could be peering at you, or unseen things eluding your notice. Woods give me the creeps. Aside from the creepy feel, I can't wait to raise my family here. It really has been a break for us. As a young family of 3, it's been tough for us. We have baby number 2 on the way, and due to certain pregnancy complications, my wife has had to quit her job. It's okay though, we'll make it work, and with this discount on the bigger house, we have that extra cash for the baby. Everything seemed to be going great, until this morning. My daughter Edith is 9, and she came up to me today with an odd-looking book. She told me the little girl in her room gave it to her. I shrugged it off as a kid's imagination and put the book aside, not thinking much of it until this evening when my wife spoke to me complaining about Edith's imaginary friend. She had been misbehaving and claiming this little girl was telling her to. That's when I mentioned the book. It's generated more questions than answers, and I'm a little concerned. I'll write up some entries. I've edited the spelling and punctuation, to make it flow better. I heard another scream today, but Daddy says it's just another fox in the garden. They make very scary sounds. Daddy took me out for ice cream today and said that we could go every Friday, but that I wasn't allowed to tell Mummy about the foxes in the garden making those screams, as she's really scared of them and it will make her cry. I don't want to make Mummy cry. There's a strange sound coming from the basement today. It sounds like a lot of bumps, and Daddy says those nasty raccoons must have gotten in again. He stormed downstairs, and after a lot of shouting and banging, the raccoons must have gone, as the sounds have stopped. I told Mummy about the nasty raccoons at dinner, and Daddy got very mad at me. He came to my room and hit me, and told me that I scared Mummy, that if I told her about the animals again, that we'd have to move, and I'd lose my best friend Eloise, and it would all be my fault. I don't want to lose my best friend. Mummy asked me why my eye was bruised, and I told her I tripped over Mr. Snuggle and hit into my bed. Daddy gave me a bar of chocolate, so he must have been happy that I lied to Mummy. He's letting me visit Eloise tomorrow, and I can't wait. I think I had a bad dream last night, but I was awake, and I heard a lady shouting, "Help!" Daddy said it was just a bad dream again, and got me a glass of milk and a cookie. He took ages to get it through, and after the milk, I didn't hear it again. I think Daddy is making a surprise for Mummy for her birthday. He spends so long in his workshop in the basement when she's not here. I hope it's something pretty, as Mummy seems really sad, and I want her to smile again. A police officer visited my school today. It was so exciting. I've never seen a real one before. He told us that a girl called Casey Everett had gone missing, and that we all needed to be careful and not leave our Mummy and Daddy's sight if we went out. I need to tell Daddy. He'll want to know. Daddy said that we have to go on a vacation for Mummy's birthday, and we'll leave in an hour. I don't want to go. I was supposed to see Eloise today, but Daddy said he's worried about that girl going missing and doesn't want me around the neighborhood. I rolled my eyes, and he stomped on my shoes. But I didn't cry out. I know Daddy hates it when I cry. I guess we'll have to go. I'm not sure what to make of this, but to me, it really sounds like this girl's father was up to something in the basement. I guess my only option is to go down there and see what I can find. With it being Christmas and the New Year period, I'm not sure when I'll get the chance, but I'll post an update once I've been down there. A few weeks ago, we moved into a new house. The previous owners left a few things behind, especially in the basement. Some plastic beads, a box of crackers, and a fleece throw. I was cleaning it all up, and I found a diary. Here's a photo of it, and here's a photo of one of the entries. Naturally, I started reading it, and I'm worried. I think there might be something weird going on in that basement. Sunday, July 11th. Yesterday we moved in. This house is like twice the size of our old one. I even got my own bedroom. I already put up my poster, the one with the cute baby owl. Brittany has her own room too. I love it here. Mum says it's time for dinner, so bye for now. Monday, July 12th. Mum left early for work, so Brittany and I have been hanging out in the basement. It's not dark and stinky like our old basement, It's finished into a big room, which is really cool. I already made a blanket fort, and it's really fun to write in when Brittany isn't being loud. Anyway, I hear Mum upstairs. Got to go. Oh, never mind. Mum isn't home yet, so I'll continue. Earlier today, we took a walk in the backyard. There's a deep forest back there. It's so pretty, and I think we found deer footprints. Wednesday, July 14th. Sorry that I skipped yesterday. Mom had the day off and took us into town. We went to the park, to the pizza place, and then to the bookstore. We talked to the owner, some really old guy. He knew a lot about the history of our house. The Smiths who you bought the house from had a lot of rabbits. Mom said she was sorry for Mrs. Smith's death. And before the Smiths, the Learys lived there. They had a girl just like you, also 10 years old, with wavy black hair. I'm 11, almost 12. How dare he? I told Mom, but she said not to fight with him because we want to be friendly to the people here. Friday, July 16th. Shh. I'm down in the basement after bedtime. I realize I left you my diary down here by mistake. I was also kind of hungry, so here I am at midnight, eating crackers and writing in my blanket fort. Mom would be so mad if she knew. She'd probably ground me for a week. Wait, I hear footsteps. Better get out of here. Bye. I like crackers too. Saturday, July 17th. I thought I left my diary in the fort, not out here. I don't like it out in the open. Well, whatever. Anyway, today we went to the pizza place again. There was a really cute waiter there. His name is Jim, and he has beautiful green eyes and curly brown hair. But Mum wouldn't let me talk to him. She wouldn't even let me say hi. She says he's too old, but I don't get it. He's 15, almost. I'm 12. That's like 3 years. When Mom got married, she was 23, and he was 29. That's 6 years of difference. 6! Double the difference in age between Jim and me. I can't believe her. But she was so mad, she yelled at me the entire way home. Mom gets mad at me too, but when she does, she hits me. Monday, July 19th. Brittany must have gotten into my diary again. I didn't write that. Brittany, I'm going to kill you. And why would you write that? Mom never hits us. Whatever. I'm going to hide this diary really well this time. You'll never find it. Also, Brittany, your Hello Kitty shirts are really dumb, and Jim thinks I'm cuter than you. Don't be so mean to your sister. Tuesday, July 20th. Mom, stop messing with my diary. I know it's you. You're always yelling at me, telling me to be nicer to Brittany. Well, guess what? She's a brat. Your mum loves you a lot. She didn't write that. I did. Wednesday, July 21st. What? Who are you? Get out of my house. Get out of the basement. Out of my fort. And stop reading my diary. I only read it because I'm lonely. I will stop if you want. Thursday, July 22nd. What do you want? To protect you if your mum ever... Unreadable scribble. Friday, July 23rd. I will keep you company. A drawing of 2 girls holding hands. Right now, my daughter is in the basement. I hear her talking and giggling to someone. He was living in Our Crawlspace by Scared Sprout. I have a phobia that goes by a few names. Scopophobia, ophthalmophobia, the fear of being watched. I have this weird compulsion. Whenever I see a doorway, a window, or virtually any surface that I believe someone could hide behind, I imagine a face peering out at me, staring. I imagine what I would do. What could I do? You will soon find out why I have this phobia. On to the story. I will try my best to remember all the details, but my mind has repressed a lot of it. Around June of 2016, my mother and I were living in a small apartment. There was no basement or attic, obviously, but there was one tiny crawl space in the closet of my bedroom. I never looked at it. I suppose some people would be overwhelmed with curiosity, but my mind had already imagined all of the worst scenarios. I decided to leave whatever dead bodies and ghosts were down there for whoever rented after us. It was a nice apartment, small but perfect for the two of us. We lived there for a few peaceful months, until the noises started. It was nothing extreme, just the odd bump in the night, and particularly scratching. My mom just brushed it off as rats in the walls. As long as they stayed in there, I saw no reason to get rid of them. A week or two later, I had already grown used to the noise. It became almost comforting in a way. After all, I never really liked silence. That is, until I awoke one night to a different noise. A rolling sound, eerily similar to the sound my closet made when I opened it up. I peeked my eyes open and looked over, but I couldn't make out anything in the dark. I thought I saw something move, but I was well aware of how the mind plays tricks on you in the dark. There was only one way to find out. I turned on my lamp. I feel like crying just writing this out. It's been almost a year since I've had to recall that night. When I turn on the light, I expected to just see a closet full of coats, but what I saw was much, much worse. It was an eye. Not just an eye, but someone's entire face, barely visible in the tiny crack he had just opened. He didn't even react to being caught. No smile, no fear, just watching. My heart has never beat faster than that night. I wish I'd screamed, or maced him, or anything, but I just stared back, frozen in time, until I couldn't hold it in anymore. I began sobbing loudly. I think I tried to say something along the lines of, "What do you want?" But it was garbled by my crying. He opened the door more. I could now see his entire body, which I don't care to describe, as I've spent 2 long years trying to forget that face. Shh. I lost my breath at that. Hearing him made it real. I couldn't pretend this was some screwed-up hallucination anymore. At this, I sat up and pressed my back against the wall. "It's okay." He said it so cheerfully, it gives me chills just remembering it. This is when I finally had the courage to run out of my room. This creep knew my name. My freaking name. My mom, still half asleep when she called the police, thought I had imagined it. Of course, by the time the police got there, he was already long gone. All that was left of him was that damned crawlspace. I still never looked inside, though writing this now, I kinda wish I did. Having some sort of proof of this would, I don't know, comfort me, because at least you all would know I'm not crazy. Apparently, he had been living in there. For how long, I don't know. But the officers who first arrived on the scene said that there were tally marks inside the crawlspace. I didn't want to know how many. I didn't want to know whether he was marking days or weeks. I just wanted to leave that freaking apartment, and we did. The police never found him, not for certain. They thought they found a homeless man who matched his description, but he was apparently unresponsive. I've always thought they didn't take it all that seriously. They just thought he was a squatter, even after I told them he knew my name. They thought that, given how long he had seemingly been squatting, he had probably just heard my name through the floorboards. Since that night, he has been the face I always see when there's an open door or closet. It's grown more distorted as time goes on, but I can always make out a part of his pursed lips, as if he's still shushing me, even now. It's gotten easier with time, but I don't think it will ever leave me completely. Anyways, I guess we didn't actually have rats. The Man Downstairs by Red Badger Lady. About 12 years ago, I would have been a 9-year-old girl. I lived in a small, upstate apartment with my mom and 2 brothers, 4 and 12 years old. There was a man living below us, Tobin, who must have been in his 40s or 50s. Tobin had shoulder-length, greasy gray hair and a poorly trimmed, short beard. I remember him being very tall, but I was and still am quite short. Up until a few years ago, I was a very naive girl. This had gotten me into many bad situations, not all with a happy ending. Anyway, Tobin took a liking to me. I remember he would be nice to my brothers, but mostly ignore them when I was around. He bought me an iPod Shuffle, or gave me his old one. It only had one song on it, a really bad cover of Radio Star. That wasn't the only thing he gave me, but it's the only one I remember. He befriended my mother, gaining access to the apartment. For a while, he only tried coming over when she was home, using his charm to woo her. Every time he was over, he was so nice to me. He would stand close to me, sometimes touching my shoulder, my hair. This went on for a few months. Finally, my mom noticed that there was something off about this guy. She told us not to talk to him and told him to never talk to us. The next day, she went to work at the same time she always did. As soon as her truck rounded the corner, we heard stomping up the stairs. My brother, thinking fast, locked the deadbolt. Immediately after, we heard pounding on the door. Not knocking, but pounding, like the police were about to break down the door. He started yelling, "Open the freaking door! I know you're in there, Brooke. Don't try to freaking trick me." I don't know how long this lasted, but I was terrified, and it felt like hours. He gave up after a while, went back to his lair. Hours later, when my mom got home, we told her what happened. She went into her gorilla mode and marched downstairs. I don't know what happened, but aside from watching me out of his window, he never bothered me again. Side note, being the nosy kid I was, I peeked in his window and saw him drinking beer with a blow-up doll. I have more stories like this, unfortunately, and I did not have the best childhood. Maybe I'll post them at some point. Toodles. Basement Visitor by Silence Artwork. So, I remember this incident after reading some of the stories here, and damn, does it terrify to think me what could have happened. My mother and I were living in a townhouse with her current boyfriend at the time. I was perhaps 15, 16. I slept upstairs because my mother's room was upstairs, and the basement was semi-furnished with a bed, a couch, TV, etc., and was where her boyfriend had his kids sleep when they visited. My older sister was living with her roommates about, 30-minute drive away. This is important to the story. She was taking college classes. So, as per any weekday, I would wake up, get ready for work. I worked at a kiosk in the nearby mall, selling glasses and weird clothing. Mom at this point was still asleep. I went downstairs and noticed the basement door was open and the back door was unlocked, as well as food packages out of the kitchen. I assumed Mom's boyfriend forgot to close the basement and someone just made a mess in the kitchen, which was strange though, because my mother was a clean freak. A crumb would cause her to freak out. I cleaned it up, made breakfast, and went to work. I got a phone call on the bus ride there from my mom's boyfriend. "Your sister is in the basement." I was like, what? Why? That made no sense whatsoever. Why would she be at our house? She didn't have a key. No one let her in that I know of. I told him this, and he went, "Well, who's sleeping on the couch downstairs then?" My heart pretty much leapt out of my chest. He went on to tell me that there were some articles of his clothing missing, which meant that this person went into my mother's room at night, took these things, fed themselves, let my dog out of the living room. It was blocked off at night with the dog there because he had a bad habit of taking nosedives down the basement if the door was open, and slept in our basement. Mom's boyfriend went to work, leaving my mother at home with this stranger who had walked around our house, took our things. Needless to say, I was having a heart attack at work. I couldn't concentrate. I freaked out on the phone. He told me to stop being dramatic. The guy didn't do anything. By the time I got hold of my mother, the guy was gone. There was a rumpled blanket on the couch downstairs. The food I had cleaned up. Boyfriend's clothes missing. The boyfriend told me the guy must have been drunk and got the wrong house. But how did he open the door then? I assume, and still do, it takes some serious focus to break into a house door. Focus you probably don't have drunk. It wasn't broken, just unlocked. Someone had picked it. We are so lucky this guy didn't do anything to us, get violent, anything like that. The things that could have happened scare me to think about. Basement by Morningwood. Long-time lurker, first-time poster, so bear with me here. When I was about 15, I really got sick with bronchitis for about 2 weeks. One snowy morning during that time period, I was home alone with my younger brother. I was staying on the living room couch with him sitting on the floor next to me, watching TV. We started to hear some strange sounds from the basement, but I shrugged it off, figuring it was probably just the furnace or pipes. The house was from the 1800s, but the sounds grew louder, and I was beginning to get sufficiently creeped out. I wasn't saying anything to my brother, though, because I didn't want to alarm him, just in case it actually was the house settling, and I was being totally stupid. I should explain the setup of my house a little bit. There was a hallway off the living room that contained the bathroom and basement floor. From where we were sitting in the living room, I could see the basement door clearly. And in the basement, there was a door that led to the backyard, but it was pretty difficult to open. So I was sitting watching the door because I was purely paranoid at this point, and all of a sudden, I heard and saw the doorknob move ever so slowly. I jumped up and told my brother to grab the landline so I could call our mom. She told us to put a chair in front of the basement door and call the cops immediately. I did just that, and they were on their way. The doorknob moved a few more times along with some strange tapping and knocking. It's safe to say that we were scared out of our pants. We sat quietly and watched the door the entire time we waited. When the cops arrived, we discovered that there were big footprints in the snow going down our driveway and into the backyard. They looked around but found nothing. There wasn't even anything missing. So, to the creep in the basement when I was 15, let's not meet. Second Room in Basement by Syria 1294. Well, I should probably start off with saying this. I'm currently a 13-year-old female, and I've been sleeping in my house's basement because my sister and I share a room, and I hate sharing. I moved to the basement for a while to get away from her. This just happened, and I'm scared. We have a second room in our basement, used for storage and stuff, and I was sitting on the bed reading a book. Just to let you know, I pushed a tiny table and my laptop against the door, so if anything happened, I could hear. Suddenly, I could hear the door opening. I threw a pair of nail clippers that were sitting on the bedside table to let the person know I was awake. It stopped and ran past up 2 flights of stairs. Just to let you know, I have 2 basements. Sorry if that sounds weird. My brother and his friend were the only 2 awake, and he lived in the first basement. I could hear noises coming from the second basement, and yet they seemed not to notice. He just checked it out and said the door wasn't fully closed. But at that second, I wasn't thinking of what I threw the clippers, and it suddenly stopped. Also, I don't think the door would be pushing the desk that I moved up against the door. The thing that creeped me out the most is that I got dressed in there, and my new puppy that we just got wouldn't sleep in there. She kept crying, so I gave her to my brother, and then she was fine. She usually loved being with me, which is weird, and she hates my brother. Well, I guess I'll never know. Guess I'm sleeping upstairs with my other dog tonight. That night, I was sleeping at my parents' house because I didn't want to stay in my apartment, mostly because it was boring there. I lived alone and didn't have a TV, so all I really could do was sleep. If I came back to my hometown, at least I could see my family and spend time with them. It allowed me to keep my social skills up. I decided that I would stay downstairs with my little brother and play video games. We'd just bought a new Wii, and we were pretty addicted to it. My dad and my sister went to bed early, while my brother and I kept gaming. At around 12:45, we were still playing, when I heard something that sounded like my mom calling my brother's name. It was like she was shouting for his attention from another level of the house. She did this a lot, yelling at him to do the dishes or to go to sleep. He's pretty young, so he does still have a bedtime. But this didn't make any sense. First off, Mom wouldn't yell so late at night. Second, and most importantly, Mom wasn't home. She'd left to catch a flight a few hours before. I shrugged it off as my mind playing tricks on me. I often hear strange things that don't make sense. I was probably just tired. Not even 10 minutes later, it happened again. She called him in the exact same voice and tone, faint, but definitely my mom, yelling my brother's name. I was about to conclude I'd gone crazy when my brother looked at me confused and said, "Is that Mom calling me?" I stared at him in disbelief. He heard it too. Impossible. I told him that I'd also heard it a few minutes earlier, and he explained that he had heard it too, but he just thought it was a sound in the video game we were playing. We agreed that it must have been, since we couldn't find any other explanation. We were still creeped out though, so we resolved to play the game on mute. After a while, I got a weird feeling. I felt like something wanted my attention. I wondered if maybe my mom missed the flight and drove back and got locked outside. I told my little brother to stay put and that I was going to check things out. I walked to the front door and turned on the porch light, but no one was there. Strangely, the door wasn't even locked. I locked it and walked back to the basement door. I noticed that the door was open just a bit and stared into the dark for a second. I decided to check it after looking upstairs first. If something was inside, it would be wiser to check on my sleeping family rather than a dark, empty floor. I went up the stairs slowly and checked all of the rooms that were open. I didn't find anything thankfully out of the ordinary, so I went back downstairs. When I got to the living room, I found the basement door was now closed. I was sure I had seen it open before, and it freaked me out, so I called my little brother over. He walked up to me, and I asked him if he had shut the door while I was upstairs, but he told me he hadn't moved from the TV room since I'd left. I didn't want to check anymore. I just shut the basement door tightly. There was a lock on it, but the door would never shut tight enough for me to make the lock work. I went to the kitchen and grabbed a huge knife and went around the house, making sure all the doors were locked. I texted my mom to ask her if she was okay and if she was in the house by any chance. She, as I expected, didn't answer. She was supposed to be in another country. After a while, we kept playing the game on mute, waiting to hear the voice again. But it was quiet after that. Finally, I got tired and left my brother alone downstairs, going up to my room to sleep. The next morning, I woke up and found myself alone in the house. Everyone was gone, so I just started watching YouTube videos on the computer all day. I kept glancing at the basement though, just waiting for something to pop out. But it was still quiet, and nothing came out. When my dad finally came back from work, I told him what had happened. I even asked him if maybe he'd been watching a home video with my mom in it. His room was above the TV room, so we definitely could have heard it through the ceiling. But he told me he had been asleep. He had gone to bed very early and drifted off right away before he could turn the TV on. I kind of knew that already, but I wanted to be sure it couldn't have been anything, except for, well, whatever it was that had made the noise the night before. There was one thing he told me that I didn't understand. When I left my brother downstairs, I saw him shut off the game system and TV, then shut the room's door from the outside and retreat into the living room to sit in the armchair and watch videos on his iPad. He usually stayed up until about 5 a.m. Once the sun came up, he'd go to bed. But until then, he'd be in the living room on that chair and wouldn't move until it was to go get a snack in the kitchen. It was a shock to me when my dad said that when he woke up and tried to get into the TV room, it was blocked. My little brother had gone around to the other side through the bathroom. He found that the bookshelf had been pushed in front of the door for some reason. A reason I have never been able to explain.